Hello, everybody. Okay, so what we're going to do today here is go through how to set up your working environment for the Lisbon Data Science Starters Academy Batch 3 so that you can submit your exercises to be graded as well as just know where the learning material is and how it works. So everything that I'm about to do is already documented on this Batch 3 students repository. I am not going to go through this README step by step. I'm going to actually go do the actions that are on this, okay? So you can watch this screencast, but it does not have all of the information that this README has. So I would recommend using this screencast as well as this README kind of side by side. So if in case you're a little bit curious or you're a little bit confused about exactly how one of the steps went, you can use the screencast as a referral. But really your source of truth is this Batch 3 Students Repository README. Okay, so the first thing that you will have been expected to do, and these are prerequisites, are set up your Git and GitHub. So if you do not have a GitHub account, you need to get it. And then you also need to give yourself the capability to clone repositories. You can do that via GitHub Desktop, or you can use it via the command line. The second thing that you need to do is install Anaconda. So Anaconda is the only officially supported virtual or environment manager that we are working with for the Academy. There are several out there. You can use other things such as Docker or pipenv. However, for cross-platform support, Anaconda is the best. So this is the one that we are officially supporting. When you do install it, you will see a couple of different versions. You definitely want the 3.7 version. That is the one that you download. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on here, assuming that you have downloaded and installed Git, you have a GitHub account, as well as you've installed Anaconda. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to create our own workspace repository. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my account. So my account's name is Hershaw. I'm going to go into repositories. And I'm going to say new repository. And very important, I want to call it batch 3 workspace. I'm going to copy and paste this to make sure that I do not make any mistakes. I'm going to make it private. This is very important because it defaults to public, so you have to be sure and click private. Initialize with a README, and this part is also very important. Give it a Python get ignored. This part is very important. If you don't do this, it could lead to very strange behavior down the road. Okay, create. Excellent. So now the next step is I need to be able to give the Academy's portal the ability to clone this repository so that we can grade things. So what I will do first is go to the portal. There is an OAuth application step or OAuth authorization step that I need to go through. This does not give the Lisbon Data Science Academy access to very much information at all. In fact, it only gives us access to see the public data. So this is safe, is what I'm saying. Okay, now that I have signed in, I end up on the Learning Units page. What I want to do is go directly to Profile, add in the name of my user. I'm going to keep it it has to be the same as your GitHub name. Go ahead and update it. And then this big key right here, typically if you triple click on it, it will highlight everything. So then I will copy that. And then I will go into the batch 3 workspace repository under my name that I just created. I will go to settings. I will go to deploy keys. And I will add a new deploy key by copying and pasting this deploy key. Remember, it came from the portal profile deploy key. Just copy and paste this into here, and then I'll give it a good name, which is the LDSSA portal. No need to click allow write access. You do not want to do that. Add the key, and there we are. Now the portal is able to see the repository with which I will be submitting my exercises. Okay, now the next thing that we need to do is we need to now clone a couple of repositories, okay? The first one is I want to clone the workspace that I just now created. I'm going to do this using GitHub Desktop. First, what I need to do is I need to sign in. So I'll sign in to github.com. Remember, my username is Hershaw, and I have my password. This is the same password that you use to log into github.com. All right, and then I want to clone a repository from the internet. Mine that I want to clone is Hershaw Batch3 Workspace. Okay, now that I have cloned my repository, I will need to see where it ended up. Okay, now in my home directory, I created an LDSSA folder, and I configured my GitHub desktop to clone into this particular folder, okay? By default, it will put it somewhere in documents, but I think it's best to organize all of your LDSSA stuff into one directory and clone it there. So, as you can see, my Batch3 workspace, which only contains a README that says Batch3 workspace, has now been cloned into my onto my own local machine. Okay, now I need to clone the learning material. Okay, so now the learning material is in a different repository. Okay, so this is very important. There are two repositories that you need to clone. One of them is the repository that you just created, and then the other one is this Batch3 students repository. Okay, so notice that the organization name, note the organization name and then the name of the actual repo. And then let's go back and let's clone a repository. Filter LDSSA Batch3 students, select it. Remember the local path where I created in my home directory in LDSSA. This is where I want it to go. So then it should be right next to the workspace one that I just created. So watch, let's go ahead and clone. Now it's cloning. Look at all of the work going on. Okay, it's done. Now if I go back and look at my folder, I now have this Batch3 students and this Batch3 workspace sitting right next to each other. Okay, so now we'll go through how to run and submit a learning unit to be graded. Okay, the learning unit that we're going to use, if you go to the portal and you go to the learning units, we have this sample SLU00. Okay, this is the tutorial repository. This one is not for a grade. This is a tutorial one. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a Conda environment so that we can run the notebooks, the learning notebooks, as well as the exercise notebooks. Now, the way that you do this with Anaconda Navigator, I'm not going to go through, I've already created it because it takes a really long time to create environments. So I'm just going to show you how it's done. Okay, what you will want to do is from the home, you'll click first on environments, and then you want to import. Okay, you will give your environment a name. It should be the same name as the SLU, and then what you will do is you will select a file. What file do you select? So remember, we have this Batch3 students repository that has this sample in it, which has this SLU00 LU tutorial. There is this environment.yaml. This is what you want to select. This is the definition of an Anaconda environment. So then you will open it, and then if the name does not conflict, you can click import. When you click this import right here, you will then have to wait for a while because Anaconda is not fast. Okay, so let's assume that you've created an SLU00 already. Let's select the environment, click the play, and you open with Jupyter Notebook. Okay, now what you get is you get a Jupyter Notebook that is anchored at the root, at your home directory. So if I'm looking just in my regular file browser, I will see all of this stuff. One of them is LDSA and LDSSA. As you can see, I also have LDSA, LDSSA. So remember I had cloned everything into LDSSA. So I'm going to go to the Batch3 workspace. Sorry, the Batch3 students. And this is where I will be able to see my learning units. So I can go ahead and say, let's open up the learning one. And then hooray, look at this. I have my actual tutorial. I'll leave you to go through this on your own time. Okay. But this is how you can this is how you can open up a notebook and then actually access the material that we have. Okay, so now if I want to submit a learning unit for grading, I need to do the following. Okay, now be very, very careful with these steps because there are a couple manual steps involved that we're not super proud of, but we were not able to find a way around them. Okay, so this is the only really manual step that you have in the process. It's not a complicated one, but you need to take a lot of care to do it correctly. Okay, so remember, Batch3 workspace, this is the repository which we will be committing and pushing to, and that will be graded. So what we need to do is we need to go into the Batch3 students. We need to take our learning unit. You can just do a copy paste of the learning unit so that it is exactly the same as it is in the Batch3 students. So as you can see in Batch3 students, we have this sample directory right here that has the SLU in it. I'm going to copy this entire directory so that the path stays exactly the same and put it into Batch3 workspace. Okay, once it is in Batch3 workspace, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of anything that I don't need inside of it. Okay, the only one that I need is the actual exercises notebook. So I'll go ahead and get rid of everything else because this is the only thing that's going to be graded. You can leave everything else in there. It will result in a much bigger repository, which may or may not be what you want. For us on our grading side, we do not want that because we're going to be cloning your repository every single time we grade it. Okay, so now let's go ahead and open up this exercise notebook and then do the actual exercises. So we can go ahead and navigate back to Batch3 workspace. As you can see, we have this sample directory now, and then we have this exercise notebook in it. Now, I'll leave it to you to go through in detail the contents of this exercise notebook. Okay, this exercise notebook is written for the instructors. Okay, this is written to be a tutorial for instructors on how to create learning units. However, you can go ahead and go through this to get an idea of what the instructors are going through, which should give you a bit of insight into how things are working behind the scenes and hopefully help you understand what to expect. Okay, so I can run all of these cells. Now it's very important to remember to run the import cells. Okay, I can read the learning material about what we're going over. Okay, this is just basic Python stuff. There's nothing simple here. There are some examples and some screenshots that show how we created these graded these exercises that need to be graded, and then you'll arrive to something that looks like this. Okay, any place where it says your code here, It means that this is where you need to be implementing your solutions. Okay, so we can read the directions that are in the comments. There also should be some context above it as well. And we know that what we need to do is we need to create a list of integers from 0 to 5 inclusive. So it includes 0, it includes 5, and assign it to the variable numbers. All right, so I need to say numbers equals, and then something. Since we're all Python programmers here, we know it looks like this. Okay, now you may run into a cell that looks like this. Okay, these are grading cells. If you run the grading cell, what you should see is, hooray, it works. Because we have these kind of complicated looking code that checks to make sure that the variables you created are correct. If for some reason it's not correct, when you run this grading cell, you'll get this assertion error. Okay, so as you can see, we were missing one element, so it failed. We added the element back in. Hooray, everything's good. So we know that we passed the first one here. Now we have the second one. Okay, the second one that we have here says we need to reverse sort the list of numbers. All right, so we want to store the solution in this numbers reversed, and we want to say list reversed numbers, and then hooray, it worked. Say, for example, we forgot to reverse the numbers. No, it would not work. It would die. Okay, so let's go ahead and leave one of them incorrect and see what happens. All right, so now what you want to do is you want to save your changes. Make sure and do a file, I do a control S. I don't want to do a save as. You just want to do a regular save, okay? And then what you can do is you can go back to your GitHub desktop. You can check out your Batch3 workspace repository. Here it is. And we can say, all right, here we go. Let's go ahead and submit and push this exercise notebook that we've implemented. Okay, so submitting LU 00. Go ahead and commit. Go ahead and push. Okay, now if we go through and we look at our own workspace repository, here it is, Batch3 workspace, we can check to see, okay, sample LU, exercise notebook. Now, does this look like what I was just doing on my own machine? Give it a moment to load. And then here we can see, remember, I was able to create the first one and the assertions passed. Hooray, that's good. I created the second one. I had an assertion error. So I did one of them correctly. I did one of them incorrectly. All right, so now let's go back to the portal. So portal.lisbondatascience.org. Go into your sample learning unit and then click the grade button. Okay, now after you click the grade button, you will need to wait a little while. Okay, as we can see, it's grading. If I refresh, okay, now the grading is already done. So that was a very quick one. We got lucky there. Okay, so I got a 10 out of 20. Okay, that is not a passing grade, and that's because I got this one wrong. So if you do submit a learning unit that has some questions that are done incorrectly, you will be able to see what your score out of 20 is. Okay, so now let's go ahead and fix this. Hooray. Save the notebook. Let's go back and commit and push that. So exercise notebook, this is the one. Fixed second question. Commit, push. Wait for it. And let's just go through and check real quick by reloading to make sure that we pushed it correctly. Because what we see on github.com in the interface like this is what the portal will see. Okay, we can see that we fixed this last one right here because there's no more There's no more errors. So now let's go back to the portal. Let's ask it to be graded again. Okay, it's grading, it's grading. Okay, now we have a 20. And we can see here at the main list that we have a 20 out of 20. Okay, so this, one last thing here. At the bottom of the README, please be sure and read the help section. This describes how to get help for different kinds of problems. Okay, so this concludes the tutorial. This is the exact same workflow that you will be using for all of your learning units. All of your learning units, you have to uh, go to the students, this batch 3 students repository, okay, manually copy and paste exercise notebooks into your batch 3 workspace repository. Then you work on it on your own local machine until you get all of the asserts to pass, and then you commit and you push using GitHub Desktop or using the terminal, however you would like to do it. And that is it. Concludes our tutorial.